Hello, and welcome to the Romancing in Paris podcast. I'm your host, Lily Heise. In this podcast, we'll be traveling around the city as I pick out my top romantic spots per arrondissement. You don't have to visit these places only as a couple. Exploring them can be the expression of your own love of Paris. Are you ready to get romancing in Paris? In today's episode, we continue our romancing on the left bank by drifting a little to the west and into the 14th district. The 14th occupies the very south of Paris and covers some of the Montparnasse area. Quite family-oriented, the 14th isn't the most exciting of Paris's 20 arrondissements. However, it is home to the beautiful Parc Montsouris, the lovely Cité Universitaire student residence complex, which is within a park open to the public, some pretty villa streets, the colorful Rue des Gares Market Street, and some of the historic cafes of the Montparnasse area, popular with the bohemians, artists, and writers of the first half of the 20th century. The district's most famous site is likely the catacombs. But this creepy place isn't very romantic. Well, except maybe for goth couples. One could enjoy a romantic stroll in the Montparnasse Cemetery, the final resting place of a number of historic romantics, although that might be a touch morbid too. I'm not going to take you to any of those more obvious places during this episode. Instead, we're going to a secret place. Actually, one of my favorite secret places in all of Paris. So secret, you can't even see it from the street. A place which is romantic in ambiance, and thanks to a historic royal mistress who briefly lived here. Grab your sherry. We're going to the Port Royal Cloisters. The Cloisters of what? Where? Oh yes, not even many Parisians know about this spot. It could actually fit nicely into the context of my other podcast, Paris Cachet. Despite this, I do love the romantic qualities of this enchanting secret place, hidden within the complex of the Cochin Hospital. Yes, a hospital! Well, the hospital is actually a hodgepodge of buildings from various eras, the oldest part of which used to be an abbey dating back to the 1600s. So, let's start by going back in time to that era. Actually, we need to go back a little bit further in time, to the century before the abbey was opened. The architect Pierre Lecaut, who worked on the new Renaissance parts of the Louvre, namely the Cour Carrée, built a home for himself here in the 1560s. At a time when this area was a suburb called the Faubourg Saint-Jacques, found south of the Paris city limits and not far from the stone quarry whose tunnels became the catacombs and whose blocks of stone were actually used for parts of the Louvre. Maybe it wasn't such a coincidence Lecaut was fond of the area. In addition to being an architect, he also became a priest, and was a cleric at Notre Dame, where he was buried upon his death in 1578. Childless, his home and other properties were inherited by his nephew, Léon Lecaut, who then sold it to Angélique Arnaud, the Mother Superior of the Port Royal des Champs Abbey, which was located in the Chevreuse Valley southwest of Paris. This would become a branch of their abbey closer to the capital. Some renovations and adjustments were made to the buildings built by Lecaut, and it opened as the Cistercian Abbey of Port Royal in 1626. In 1646, a chapel was built, followed by some adjoining cloisters in the 1650s. A prestigious convent since its founding, it had a few sisters from notable backgrounds, including Marguerite Perrier, the niece of mathematician, writer, and philosopher Blaise Pascal, and Catherine de Saint-Suzanne, the daughter of famed 17th century artist Philippe de Champagne. He himself a very devout Catholic and painter of religious subject matter. The abbey didn't only house nuns. As was common at the time, and as we saw in episode 7 of this podcast, some nunneries also welcomed aristocratic ladies who rented out apartments in their complexes. That was also the case here. Famous aristocratic ladies who stayed at the abbey included Marie de Rohan, the older half-sister of François, Prince de Soubise. Yes, the same Soubise that we met in episode 3 of the podcast, who had the Hôtel de Soubise built, and who was married to Anne de Rohan-Chabot, one of the mistresses of Louis XIV. Strangely enough, the abbey also hosted a different mistress of the Sun King, Marie Angélique de Sorail, the Duchess of Fontaine, often called Angélique, who I will tell you a little more about. You see, Louis XIV didn't have just one mistress. He lived a very, very long time, to a few days shy of 77. Very impressive for those times. During his long adulthood, he had at least 24 unofficial mistresses and 4 official ones. Among this more select group was Angélique. Born in 1661 into an aristocratic family in Auvergne, the volcanic mountainous region of central France, as she grew up, Angélique's parents realized the potential of their daughter's exceptional beauty, especially thanks to her lovely strawberry blonde hair, gray blue eyes, and silky complexion. So they raised enough money to send her to court in Paris, in the hopes that she would make a good match and help restore the family's fortunes. Little could they have expected what happened. Angélique actually had something of a premonition of her destiny shortly before departing north to Paris. She had a dream that she was on an Auvergnat mountain peak and was suddenly encircled by dark, stormy clouds. After revealing her troubling dream to her confessor, the latter said, "Take care of yourself. This mountain is the court where great lightning will strike you. Stay faithful to God, and nothing bad will happen to you. But if you don't..." Oh la la, Angélique! Arriving in 1678, at the age of 17, she became a lady-in-waiting to the king's sister-in-law, Elizabeth Charlotte, the Duchess of Orleans, also called the Princess Palatine, who described Angélique as beautiful as an angel, but as stupid as a basket. That was somewhat of an unfair generalization, as she wasn't necessarily stupid, she just hadn't had a very cultivated upbringing. Despite this lack of cultured brilliance, her stunning looks quickly won over the king. He became so infatuated with the young girl's beauty, he abandoned his 2 other mistresses, the Marquise de Montpassant and the Marquise de Maintenon. Watch out, Angélique. Apparently, this new love rejuvenated the 40-year-old king. He began wearing diamonds, ribbons, and feathers to impress his young amoureuse. He started showing up with her in public, and she could even attend Mass with the king, his family, and the 2 other mistresses. He granted her a monthly pension of 100,000 écus, countless precious jewels, and an 8-horse carriage. This might all sound fairy tale perfect, but Madame de Montespan became extremely jealous. She supposedly said that the king had 3 mistresses, herself in name, this girl in bed, and Maintenon in his heart. Madame de Montespan was so furious and jealous that it is even said one time when the court was staying at the Saint-Germain-en-Laye castle, she arranged for 2 bears the king had given her to be let loose in Angelique's apartment in the middle of the night. What a fright that must have been! Forget getting struck by lightning like in her premonition. In the autumn of 1679, it seemed like the king's passions for Angelique were beginning to wane. Montespan jumped at the occasion by sending Madame de Maintenon to persuade Angelique to give up her position as the king's favorite. To this Angelique responded, "Madame, you're asking me to undo a passion like one undoes a shirt. Know you nothing of the workings of the heart?" The ploy did not work. Despite all her plotting, Montespan couldn't seem to get rid of Angelique. To make matters worse, for Montespan that is, the young beauty fell pregnant, something which further added to Montespan's fury. Angelique sadly gave birth prematurely in January 1680 to a boy who did not survive past a month. Poor Angelique had lost a lot of blood during the birth, as well as her looks. She decided to retire to the Abbey of Chelles, east of Paris, where her sister was the Mother Superior. She remained sickly, something which displeased the king, and so, considered wounded in the service of the king, Louis granted her the title of Duchess of Fontaine, and rewarded her with a pension of 20,000 livres, the sort of gesture he often made when ending an affair. She was then moved into the Port-Royal Abbey, and it is possible that she received visits from the king here, as some believe she gave birth to another child, this time a stillborn girl, in March. Regardless or not if this is true, Angelique was truly unwell. Sensing that she was going to pass away, she asked to see the king one last time. He did go and visit her at the abbey, and is said to have shed a few tears during the visit, an act which led Angelique to say, "I can now die happy, because my last sight was my king crying." She died on June 28th, 1681. Her body was buried here at the abbey, and her heart was sent to her sister in the Abbey of Chelles.
We'll be right back with Romancing in Paris after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Romancing in Paris.
There was some controversy, even at the time, over her death. It was in the heat of a scandal called the Affair of the Poisons, which had links to Madame de Montespan. It is thought that she might have ordered Angelique's poisoning, although no concrete proof of this was found. That said, there is also a legend that apparently happened in 1695, that of the ghost of Angelique appearing before the king. She told him that he should leave Madame de Maintenon, as this was the only solution for him not to find himself in purgatory upon his death, like Angelique was herself. She also said that Madame de Montespan had poisoned her. Holy! How was all of this for royal romantic drama? Fit for a soap opera. I suppose Angelique's tragic premonition did come true, that of being struck by lightning. This is how the French describe love at first sight, un coup de foudre. Angelique's strike was made directly by the king, and this led to her sad demise. The abbey survived until the Revolution when, like all other religious structures, it was closed down. It served as a prison from 1790 to 95. Then it was converted into a maternity hospital, and thus it began its medical raison d'etre, which it still retains today as a general hospital. Despite being encircled by not-so-attractive modern buildings now, the Abbey building and its romantic cloisters still exist. You can access these via the entrance of the hospital at 123 Boulevard du Port Royal. If the security guard at the checkpoint asks you where you're going, which they usually don't, you can say you would like to visit the cloisters. On peut visiter la cloître? They will wave you in, and then all you need to do is walk to the right side of the first building and take the middle door. This will lead you into the gorgeous garden of the cloisters, which is bordered by arches and colorful roses. Settle in on one of the benches to savor its peaceful ambiance, where you can also imagine Louis XIV and Angelique sitting together as well. The setting is oh so terribly romantic, and a special secret spot to discover with your chérie. Thank you for listening to this latest edition of Romancing in Paris. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. That way you won't miss the next one. Ratings or reviews get a big je t'aime from me. If you would like to discover more romantic places in the district, see my website jetaimeneither.com for my guides to the top romantic spots per arrondissement of Paris. This podcast was produced by Paris Underground Radio. Check out their website if you're interested in listening to more great podcasts on Paris. Until next time, happy romancing in Paris.